This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Breaking news, folks, blowing up all over X right now. So not too long ago, Kash Patel, who is the director of the FBI, had posted this on X where he says, "We uncovered this annex along with thousands of other documents buried in a back room at the FBI. It revealed a highly classified piece of the Durham report, evidence that the Clinton campaign plotted to frame President Trump and fabricate the Russia collusion hoax." He continues on to say, "We worked with Chairman Grassley and declassified the documents immediately, and now the American people can see the truth for themselves. The Russia hoax was a disgrace that President Trump and our country should have never been put through." Now, I understand that some of you might be saying, well, why should I care? I'm not American. Well, all of us need to care, because had there not have been this Russia hoax, there would have never been a Harry and Meghan. Yes, folks, this bombshell that was dropped today exposes the origins and starting point of the censorship industrial complex. So inside these 29 declassified pages dropped by the FBI today goes to show this smoking gun of liberal mega donor George Soros' team knew the whole Clinton plan for Russiagate hoax 4 days before FBI opened up the probe. And so did Obama, Brennan, and Comey. Let's take a look a little closer. Sent from Leonard Bernardo, who was part of the George Soros Open Society team. His official title is Senior Vice President at Open Society Foundations. So the woman that they're referencing through this document, in some cases it's Julia and Julianne and Julie. This is supposed to be in reference to Clinton's foreign policy advisor, okay? Now, it's unclear at this time who Leonard wrote this email to, but the important thing to get here is that he's from Open Society, George Soros, okay? It says July 27, 2016. This is before Meghan Markle came into our lives and wrecked it, okay? Now, I do believe at that time there were whispers here and there that Prince Harry was dating some actress, but nobody really was paying attention or cared. But then on October 30th, 2016, that's when the news broke by Camilla Tominey that Prince Harry was dating this nobody actress named Meghan Markle. And then within less than 24 hours, we have Samantha Markle now doing an interview with the Sun newspaper calling Meghan Princess Pushy. Now, she claims that, they took her words and they twisted it and yada, yada. And yeah, everybody gave her the benefit of the doubt. Well, at least I did. But now clearly looking back, you can see how calculated everything was. So it was always the intention to put that headline there as Princess Pushy, in my opinion. But anyway, back to this email. It says, "Hi, HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. Say something like a critical infrastructure threat for the election to feel menace, since both POTUS and VPOTUS have acknowledged the fact IC, intelligence community, would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable. However, there seems to be signs GRU penetration, and I think that's some sort of Russian bot network, 2.0 VPN elite, whatever that may be. They appear hardly skilled, incompetent, bumbling idiots, as SMB somebody called them. In absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and ThreatConnect will supply the media, and GRU will hopefully carry on to give more facts." So now GRU here is in reference to the Russian intelligence, and there was evidence that Russia had been trying to hack into our system generically. They weren't specifically working with Trump and favoring Trump. I mean, they literally were just trying to hack. So there is evidence of that, but everything that was put onto Trump was all a lie. Trump was not working with the Russians. Trump was not colluding with the Russians. But anyway, obviously, Open Society Foundation knew what this plan was going to be to make it look like the Russians were spying and colluding with Trump. Now, the smoking gun here is Open Society telling whoever they wrote to here to say something like a critical infrastructure threat for the election, to feel menace, since both POTUS and VPOTUS, blah, blah, blah. It's the first part of that sentence. Say something like a critical infrastructure threat. So here's where we have to give credit to where credit is due, to Mike Benz. Because if it wasn't for him, I'll be honest, I don't think I would have been able to make all the connections that I was able to do with Prince Harry and Meghan for us to understand that we have been assaulted by these two in this military-grade censorship operation. But he makes the connection that really just blows the whole house of cards down, in which he writes, "Holy effing shit. This in the gosh darn it classified index that has been classified for 9 gosh darn it years. This is where they cooked up the critical infrastructure hoax that created the legal predicate cover for the entire censorship industrial complex." So on March 14, 2023, Mike Benz posts 2 switcheroos at heart of government role in censorship: foreign to domestic, powers granted to stop Russian propaganda from 2017 to 2019 turned inward at U.S. citizens 2020 to present, and then cybersecurity to cyber censorship, classifying tweets as cyber attack on critical infrastructure. Now, notice the dates, folks. We have 2017 to 2019. That's when they were all preparing to turn on to the American people. So what happened in 2017? Not only did Harry get engaged to Meghan, but he also sat down and had this conversation with Obama, to which Obama then proceeds to talk about cybersecurity right here.
The media landscape has changed dramatically.
It has.
Since then. Issues of trolling, extremism, fake news, and cyberbullying are major social issues.
Right.
Is there more that you could have done as president to get ahead of some of these issues?
The question, I think, really has to do with how do we harness this technology in a way that allows a multiplicity of voices, allows a diversity of views, but doesn't lead to a balkanization of our society, but rather continues to promote ways of finding common ground. Mm-hmm. And all of us in leadership have to find ways in which we can recreate a common space on the internet. Mm-hmm. One of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. They can be just cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases. The truth is that on the internet, everything is simplified. And when you meet people face to face, it turns out they're complicated. And you find areas of common ground because you see that things aren't as simple as have been portrayed in whatever chat room you've been in. And it's also, by the way, harder to be as obnoxious and cruel in person as people can be anonymously on the internet.
Now are you starting to see it? Then on April 5th, 2023, Mike Benz writes, "Remember how I explained DHS's trick to get away with censoring the internet was to declare misinformation a cyber threat to critical infrastructure? And the trick is everything is critical infrastructure? Elections, public health, or pregnancies. I mean, if anybody dared to criticize Meghan, you got censored, deplatformed, demonetized, harassed, doxxed, you name it. Like, I can't stress it enough that DHS most definitely had been hiding something pertaining to Harry's visa. They glow-marred the actual lawsuit, meaning that they were going to disclose whether they have any information on this guy. All because they felt that his privacy was worth more than the right for the public to know. And we had all that back and forth going on. Now, why do you think DHS had put up such a wall to disclose any information? Obviously, there is a connection here. And then when we talk about this infrastructure, we talk about Chris Krebs. You know, Chris Krebs, who was the co-chair of the Aspen Commission on Information Disorder with Harry. So to really understand how this all comes together and why in 2016, when Leonard had said, say something like a critical infrastructure threat, how it's all tied to this. Mike Benz has explained it, and he explained it beautifully. Take a listen.
But in the U.S., it was all Trump. And so essentially what they said is, well, the only other domestic intelligence equity we have in the U.S. besides the FBI is the DHS. So we are going to essentially take the CIA's power to rig and bribe foreign media organizations, which is a power they've had since the day they were born in 1947, and we're going to combine that with the domestic jurisdiction of the FBI by putting it at DHS. So DHS was basically deputized. It was empowered through this obscure little cybersecurity agency to have the combined powers that the CIA has abroad with the jurisdiction of the FBI at home. And the way they did this was they did a funny little series of switcheroos. So this little thing called CISA, they didn't call it the Disinformation Governance Board, they didn't call it the Censorship Agency, they gave it an obscure little name that no one would notice called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. But it was created by Act of Congress in 2018 because of the perceived threat that Russia had hacked the 2016 election. And so we need the cybersecurity power to be able to deal with that. And essentially on the heels of a CIA memo on January 6, 2017, and a same-day DHS executive order on January 6, 2017, arguing that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election, and a DHS mandate saying that elections are now critical infrastructure, you had this new power within DHS to say that cybersecurity attacks on elections are now our purview. And then they did two cute things. One, they said dis, and malinformation online are a form of cybersecurity attack. They are a cyber attack because they are happening online. And they said, we're actually protecting democracy and elections. We don't need a Russian predicate after Russiagate died. So just like that, you had this cybersecurity agency be able to legally make the argument that your tweets about mail-in ballots, if you undermine public faith and confidence in them as a legitimate form of voting, you are now conducting a cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure by articulating misinformation on Twitter.
Complaining about election fraud is the same as taking down our power grid.
Yes, you could literally be on your toilet seat and tweet, I think that mail-in ballots are illegitimate. And you were essentially then caught up in the crosshairs of the Department of Homeland Security classifying you as conducting a cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure because you were doing misinformation online in the cyber realm, and misinformation is a cyber attack on democracy when it undermines public faith and confidence.
So by now, I hope you guys are finally seeing how all of this is coming together and how it's all related. So yesterday, a well-known account, Barkjack, who has a track record of delivering solid information, writes, Prince Harry is devastated lately. He is voicing concerns to more and more people as the stark realization that he lost his family's trust sets in. Our rock-solid source spilled all. It's next level now. Harry laments he won't be at the long table tearing into gifts at Sandringham with his own kids, and he considers it inconceivable. He desperately wants his family back in good graces with the royal family. It is an insurmountable task posing as peacemaker, as many of his missteps with Megsy ensured relationships remain beyond repair. Oh, I don't doubt that Harry's devastated. He desperately wants to go back home, but I think it's more of getting back into the fold so he's protected. Because this stuff is now really gonna start hitting the fan. It literally is just starting. And the fact that now we're seeing that the whole thing with Donald Trump and the Russia has been a hoax. And all the people that Harry and Meghan had been aligned with, working with, and connected to, all were a part of this. I think that these two are in a panic more than anything else. And Harry is looking to book it out of America. It's probably why he's off in Africa hiding somewhere. That's just my opinion. Like, what has happened to America over the last 8 years is unforgivable. And I really do hope that all these people get the justice that they deserve, especially Harry and Meghan. I told everybody this from the very beginning that Harry was a threat on U.S. soil, undermining this country. And here we are. Not only did we have an election stolen from us, But also, they went after and promoted this bullshit hoax of Russia, 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 when it was all a lie that caused so much disruption and chaos. I mean, who could forget if you dared say the word Trump on any of these platforms from 2020 all the way up to the end of 2022? You were suppressed, you were demonetized, you were suspended. I specifically remember how careful I was in saying number 45, like how disgusting that in America, Americans were censored for saying their own president's name. You know, I don't think people understand how close we came to losing this republic. Had this election had gone the other way, we were practically there. We were. Like I say this 1,000 times over, had Elon Musk not bought Twitter, we would have never known about this censorship complex that had been created from a global perspective. But it's not just the censorship complex. There's a lot that we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know about the vaccines. We wouldn't know about the migration. I mean, clearly, look what's going on in the UK with migration. You're not allowed to talk about it. Now, we all know what's going on with these algorithms. We see what's happening to this channel. You know, this is the frustrating thing. This is important information. This is not BS tabloid stuff, benign stuff that is okay to amplify and share out to the world to keep you stupid and dumb. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, oh no, we can't let people see it. Can't let people see it. You know, I would like to make a point here that YouTube is suppressing my videos, especially the ones that challenge the approved narratives that are being forced out of the UK, like with this Online Safety Act. If you're not talking positively about it, or if you're challenging it, clearly you can see they don't want people seeing that. The video that I released today, 5 hours earlier, is doing way better. And the only thing that I can think of is that it's approved benign content that is not going to cause any harm because it's going to keep people dumb and stupid. You know, for the 7,800 people that saw this video, you probably noticed that it's not my traditional format. Like I added some music, I added some engaging visuals to keep people's attention. I also wrote a script that was neutral as well as not controversial, but presented a fair balance of both sides, the pros and the cons. There wasn't anything that should have been held back from being promoted, but apparently this is a topic that I guess the UK doesn't want people talking about, because this should have reached more people based off of it being in the news, and this is what everybody is talking about right now. Oh, and I have almost 120,000 subs. At bare minimum, I should have cracked 10K. Yeah, we know what's happening. It's all to detract you from making these kinds of videos because they think all you care about is the money. Anyway, I don't mean to belabor the point. Just help the kid out and hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, and your notification bell is on so you don't miss the next time I drop a video. But anyhow, I'm going to leave you with this last point in what Kash Patel said on this post, that our country should have never been put through this. And that's why I said in the very beginning, had this not happened, I don't think Harry and Meghan would have happened. Yeah, I think many of you would agree with me that you wish we could go back to a time where we never heard the name Meghan Markle. Yeah, when you think about it, look at that time in history. We weren't dealing with all this shit now. You know, to sum it up in a nutshell, I think that Harry and Meghan's brand represent the most destructive and divisive time in history, and they contributed to it. Yeah, Harry and Meghan were definitely disruptors, but not disruptors in a good way that helped society or advance society in any way. If anything at all, they have definitely set us back, or at least Meghan has set us back when it comes to race relations as well as feminism. Meghan really did exploit every single victim narrative that was out there over the past 4 years. Truly, she did. That's just my honest opinion. But what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.